The night the Galactic Empire came for the children, it did not announce itself with fire. That was the first mistake. On the outer spiral of the Orion Arm, where human colonies were scattered like afterthoughts rather than claims, there existed a small world catalogued in Imperial archives as H-30-179. The Empire classified it as agriculturally sufficient, industrially irrelevant, and strategically meaningless. Its population was modest. Its defenses were laughable. Its political weight in interstellar councils was non-existent, which made it perfect. The Empire had learned long ago that conquest created resistance, and resistance created stories. Stories inspired unity. Unity bred war. So the Empire no longer conquered minor species unless it had to. It harvested them instead, quietly, selectively, efficiently. Humans were a curiosity, not a threat. Fragmented governments, short lifespans, emotional volatility. A species that burned bright and brief, constantly at odds with itself. The Empire's analysts had concluded that humanity would either destroy itself or slowly fade into irrelevance within a few centuries. Until then, it was useful. Human children especially were useful. They learned quickly, adapted aggressively. Their neural plasticity fascinated Imperial scientists. A few thousand abductions across dozens of worlds, spaced far enough apart to avoid patterns, had yielded extraordinary data. There were protests, of course, grief, rage, but never retaliation, never coordination. So when the directive came down to extract 2 human juveniles from H-30-179, the operation was logged as routine. The extraction fleet arrived without crossing into visible spectrum. Their vessels slid between wavelengths, bending light and probability around themselves, ghosts in the upper atmosphere. Automated probes mapped settlements in seconds. Thermal signatures, heartbeats, neural activity, targets acquired. The twins were asleep when the drones entered the house. They lived on the edge of a farming settlement where fields of engineered grain rolled under artificial moons, and the nights were quiet enough to hear insects engineered to sing at frequencies humans found comforting. The house was simple, strong, human-built, not designed to repel anything more sophisticated than weather. The drones phased through the outer wall without sound. Inside, the air shifted, pressure adjusting to alien tolerances. 2 figures lay in adjacent beds, mirrors of one another even in sleep. Same bone structure, same neural rhythm, same subtle tension behind the eyes as if their minds refused to fully rest. Imperial sensors flagged them immediately. High cognitive potential, elevated stress adaptation markers, genetic anomalies consistent with extreme resilience. Valuable, sedation fields activated, tuned to human biochemistry. The drones extended filaments of pale light, threading them into the children's nervous systems. The protocol predicted panic upon partial consciousness. It did not happen. The boy's eyes opened first. He did not scream. He did not thrash. He watched. The girl woke a second later, breath catching just once before she stilled. Her gaze moved from the ceiling to the floating machines to her brother's face. Their eyes met. No words passed between them. None were needed. The drones registered an anomaly, elevated awareness without emotional spike. They compensated by increasing sedation. The children remained awake. Their heart rates slowed. Somewhere else in the house, 2 adults lay unconscious, neural activity suppressed to non-lethal levels. The drones had calculated the risk of resistance as negligible. Parents were variables, not factors. The twins were lifted from their beds, gravity releasing its claim on their bodies as the drones rose. Blankets fell away, drifting to the floor. The children did not reach for them. The air grew colder as the walls phased open, revealing the night beyond. Stars burned overhead, distant and indifferent. The girl turned her head slightly, committing the pattern of those stars to memory. The boy focused on the drone nearest him, noting the way its light pulsed in cycles, the way its movements lagged by a fraction of a second after environmental changes. They were learning. The extraction took 17 seconds. By the time the house sealed itself again, there was no sign anything had occurred. No scorch marks, no broken locks, no alarms triggered. The Empire prided itself on cleanliness. From orbit, the fleet slipped away, folding space around itself and vanishing between moments. On the ground, the night resumed its silence for 3 minutes. Then the woman woke. She came back to consciousness without the confusion most humans experienced after neural suppression. Her eyes opened, focused, and immediately assessed her surroundings. She noted the absence of sound, the absence of weight on the air, the absence of 2 distinct presences in the house. She was out of bed before her heart rate increased. She did not call out. She did not run. She moved with controlled precision, bare feet silent on the floor as she crossed the short distance to the children's room. The beds were empty, the blankets disturbed in a way that suggested vertical displacement rather than horizontal movement. Her jaw tightened by a fraction of a millimeter. She stood there for exactly 4 seconds. Then she turned and walked to the wall terminal. The system chimed softly, recognizing her biometric signature. Civilian interface options appeared. She ignored them. Her fingers moved in a pattern that had not been used on this world in over a decade. The terminal paused. Then the screen went black. A moment later, new text appeared, not in the soft blues and greens of civilian design, but in stark white against darkness. Authorization accepted. Status, dormant clearance REACTIVATED. The woman exhaled once. Somewhere far beyond the limits of human space, in databanks thought unreachable by any single individual, records shifted. Flags long buried were raised. Protocols designed for wars humanity pretended to have forgotten flickered back to life. The woman's name had not been spoken in military channels for years, but it was remembered. She accessed orbital scans first. The local traffic registry showed nothing unusual. No ships entering or leaving. No anomalies. She smiled without humor. Then she widened the scope. Human sensors were blunt instruments compared to imperial technology, but they had one advantage. They were designed by a species that assumed it was being hunted. She cross-referenced gravitational disturbances, electromagnetic noise, and patterns of cosmic background radiation distortion that no civilian system would ever notice. There, a shadow where there should not have been one, a ripple smoothed too perfectly to be natural. Her fingers danced across the interface, pulling data from sources that were not supposed to exist. Old allies, old favors, old ghosts. Within minutes, a projection formed, an imperial extraction signature. The woman closed her eyes. For a brief moment, memory threatened to surface, not of battles or commands or losses, but of smaller things. Of hands held when the twins were first born. Of promises made in the quiet hours of the night, when the galaxy felt far away and harmless. She buried those thoughts with practiced ease. Emotion was a tool, not a weakness, but only if controlled. She straightened and initiated the next protocol. A message went out across channels that had not carried traffic since humanity's bloodiest conflicts. It did not ask for help. It did not explain. It simply stated a fact. The twins were gone. Across human space, in places where men and women pretended to be retired, decommissioned, or irrelevant, heads lifted. Eyes narrowed. Old instincts stirred. They knew what that meant. The Empire did not know who it had taken. That ignorance was its second mistake. In the hours that followed, the Galactic Empire cataloged the successful extraction and moved on. The twins were placed in stasis aboard a research vessel bound for a secure facility several systems away. Imperial scientists reviewed preliminary scans with interest, noting unusual neural coherence even under suppression fields. They discussed ethics briefly as an academic exercise. The conclusion was the same as always. Lesser species were resources. Resources were to be used. The Empire did not monitor human military channels. There were too many. Too disorganized. Too loud with internal noise to be worth the processing power. So it missed the silence. It missed the sudden, absolute quiet that fell across certain frequencies as dormant systems came online. It missed the way human ships began to alter course without orders, drifting toward rally points that did not officially exist. It missed the activation of manufacturing lines hidden inside civilian infrastructure, churning out components that had no place in peacetime economies. On H-30-179, the woman finished preparing. She dressed not in uniform, but in plain clothes suitable for travel. The house was secured. The unconscious man who shared her bed was stabilized and moved to a medical pod with instructions that would keep him alive and unaware until help arrived. She paused only once, resting her hand on his shoulder. Then she left. The sky above the colony was bright with false dawn as she boarded a small transport vessel registered under a dozen shell identities. It lifted smoothly, engines whisper quiet, and joined the endless traffic of human space. If anyone had been watching closely, they might have noticed that its transponder code carried a sequence no civilian should know. If anyone had been listening, they might have heard the first whisper of a war that would never be officially declared. But the Galactic Empire was not watching, and it was not listening. It had taken 2 human children, and somewhere in the dark between stars, something ancient and patient began to move. The transport vessel slid through space like a shadow, unremarkable to any scanner not tuned to human frequencies. Inside, the woman studied every system readout, every jump vector, every signal that might betray the path of the Empire's extraction fleet. She did not speak. She did not hesitate. Every motion was precise, economical, deliberate. Decades of experience as a human general had honed her to this. War was not chaos, it was calculation. And calculation was lethal in the right hands. The Empire believed it had won. It had captured the children, placed them in stasis aboard a secure research vessel, and returned to routine operations. Communications from the field reported compliance, absence of resistance, and the complete success of the operation. The twin juveniles were nothing more than assets, cataloged and labeled. Human parents, meanwhile, were considered inconsequential variables. That assumption would soon unravel. Within human space, channels long thought dormant came alive. Codes and protocols buried in archived systems flickered into activity. Allies who had retired, disappeared, or gone off-grid were activated. Ships hidden in civilian shipping lanes and disguised as freighters prepared for operations whose existence the Empire would never imagine. Systems thought obsolete reactivated, and military-grade simulations ran quietly in the background, calculating probabilities and weaknesses across the entire Imperial fleet. Every measure was precise. Every strike would be surgical. Human war doctrine, as applied by the woman, was simple. Minimize unnecessary loss, maximize impact, and leave the enemy uncertain, afraid, and unprepared. The first target was a communication relay station in the Yalath cluster, deep within territory the Empire considered safe. From the outside, the station appeared normal, shields active, energy readings within expected parameters. The Empire had stationed a small garrison of mixed-species soldiers there, confident that humans could not reach them without detection. The attack began without warning. Humans moved silently. The station's defensive systems failed to recognize them until doors and access ports opened from within. In less than 10 minutes, the relay hub was neutralized. No life was taken. No fire burned. Yet the Empire's communications grid immediately experienced interference, delays, and the first whisper of panic among commanders. The woman did not celebrate. There was no time. The twins' location was known only in fragments. Data from the extraction fleet was incomplete, deliberately obscured by those who underestimated human capacity for analysis. She studied the patterns of travel, cross-referencing Imperial navigational records, gravitational distortions, and jump signatures. The children were aboard a vessel moving between systems at irregular intervals, as though the Empire had feared interception by other species and was deliberately masking its route. Next came logistics. Supply depots along the route were compromised. Energy nodes disrupted. Starship construction facilities experienced sudden malfunctions that could not be explained by routine wear or human error. Each action was discrete, leaving no trace of human interference except in the data left behind, which suggested a natural cascade of system failures. The Empire began to notice. Imperial officers called for investigations. Councils convened. Alerts were sent to governors and military commanders across the occupied sectors. Each time, reports indicated anomalies that could not be attributed to any known cause. Internal security protocols were tested, audited, and found wanting. The Empire had never encountered an opponent so quiet, so precise, and so effective without declaring itself in force. Meanwhile, aboard the research vessel, the twins stirred. The stasis fields, designed to suppress awareness and cognitive development, could not fully account for human resilience. Their eyes opened to the dim light of the containment module. They sensed patterns, cycles, the ebb and flow of energy around them. They did not panic. They did not cry. They remembered. They adapted. Their small hands traced the surfaces of the containment fields, noting subtle weaknesses, slight variances in energy distribution, and the positions of monitoring devices. Each observation was logged in memory, each anomaly cataloged. In their young minds, strategy formed like a slow, deliberate pulse. They were human, and humans observed, learned, and acted in ways other species could not anticipate. Imperial scientists grew increasingly uneasy. Readings from the stasis chambers showed anomalies, elevated brain activity, unexpected neurotransmitter patterns, and a calm awareness that should not exist under sedation. Consultations across Imperial research networks concluded the same disturbing truth. Humans, even in their most vulnerable, were unpredictable and adaptive. At the same time, human operations escalated. Every Imperial facility the fleet thought secure faced interference. Systems were not destroyed outright. They were incapacitated, rearranged, and weakened. It was as if a phantom hand reached into the machine, twisting, probing, and exposing flaws that had never been noted before. Commanders argued over the reports. Sabotage, one suggested. Unlikely, another replied. Humans are fractured, they cannot organize at this scale. They were wrong. The woman coordinated each operation from a vessel that could have been mistaken for a civilian transport. She moved through star systems, plotting courses that intersected with Imperial logistics and communication nodes. Old allies responded, ships and crews emerging from retirement or disappearance, each familiar with doctrines that had been forgotten by most humans. In minutes, entire fleets were ready to strike, appearing only in systems the Empire considered peripheral. The Empire tried to negotiate. A communication signal reached the woman's vessel, diplomatic code, official seal, promises of compliance and reparations. They offered everything to retrieve what they had taken. They offered apologies. They offered concessions. She did not respond. There was no need. Words were meaningless. Humans acted. The children were coming home. Every calculation, every strike, every disrupted supply line was part of a single, inexorable purpose. Retrieval. Finally, the research vessel came within reach. Imperial forces, alerted by anomalies but still underestimating human capability, prepared for confrontation. The woman observed, noting the disposition of guards, patrol routes, and response times. The twins had already memorized this. They were ready. When the human boarding party moved, it was as if the shadows themselves had taken form. Precision, speed, silence. No alarm, no unnecessary force. The Empire's soldiers never realized what had happened until the containment modules were open, the children released, and the vessel's systems compromised beyond recovery. The twins emerged from stasis calm and aware. They did not run. They did not shout. They observed the aftermath, machines deactivated, energy cores neutralized, doors sealed, Imperial records scrubbed. The children, under the watchful eyes of the woman who had taught them strategy before they could walk, were retrieved without a single life lost. The Empire reeled. Commanders could not comprehend the efficiency, the planning, the complete lack of error. Reports were sent to governors, senators, and admirals alike. The words in the records were sparse, chilling. Human intervention, target retrieved, enemy operational capacity compromised, casualties minimal. Across human space, hidden observers exhaled. Systems returned to nominal function. Vessels resumed civilian routes, and the woman finally allowed herself a single moment of quiet satisfaction. The twins were safe. The children who had been taken had returned. The Empire had learned the first and last lesson it would ever truly understand about humans. They were patient. They were calculating. They were unyielding. And when they acted, the galaxy learned fear, not from the loudness of their presence, but from the silence of their precision. For the Empire, the cost of underestimating humanity had begun. It would never be the same. And far beyond the reaches of the stolen star systems, in the quiet corridors of ships that no one knew existed, humans prepared for the next moment, not with anger, not with boasting, but with deliberate, unstoppable strategy. The children had been returned. The war had only just begun.